What is going on?
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening, man. I don't know.
Fix
like,
it? Did you
we
fix
can't
it?
see the comments. Like these member streams, I gotta get used to it. I gotta get used to them. We lost our editor Vintalo. He was here with us. I thought we were live, but we weren't. Oh man, what's going on, chat? I can still see you from the YouTube side. All our members. It's all good. I don't know, like I'll figure it out. It says when streaming a custom design, StreamYard won't be able to show viewer comments. All right, that's why. I can still see him over there. Welcome. And I screwed up the title. Patches and Rum Pirate Podcast. I put patched and rum. I have X-Wing here.
You're a bit like a cannon. You're a boomer.
Yes. That's right. I have the worst green screen of all time. Welcome, Vintalo. If you don't know Vintalo, he is
third time's the charm.
He's the guy that edits most of the videos. So now you know he's got to get a costume if he's going to be a regular. That's a mandate.
Man, I can't see chat. How do I see the chat? I want to see these beautiful people. I don't think I'm a member on Pirates.
We've got 7 people watching. I see you, Paul, Wicked Virtue, King's Advisors, the Gatekeepers, Lulu, Blue.
These are all my people.
The Gatekeepers for $2 super chat. You don't have to super chat here. This is a member stream. Star Wars is pirate show now too. Oh yeah. I heard they had pirates on The Mandalorian. That's always a good one. You can see X-Wing's face. He's looking for something. Thank you for the super chat, the Gatekeeper. I appreciate it. I see all the emojis in the chat. I see you guys. I just can't highlight the message because it's a special member stream. So we're gonna show you something that I was supposed to start the podcast with, and then we're gonna talk about Pirate Ed Low. The intro, it's all supposed to mix. I messed it all up. First one.
Make sure your treasure is buried, your parrot fed, and the rum is poured. It's time to set sail on another Patches and Rum podcast, exclusively for members of the History of Pirates channel.
Sorry. All right, I'll stop.
I gotta go back and fix the title. Yeah, my eye patch is up here. I can't see. What are we doing with our lives, man?
I feel incredible right now. I don't know about you.
I haven't even had anything to drink yet.
Way ahead of you.
I need more of this.
Well, welcome to the first episode of Patches and Rum's podcast. Oh man, everyone in the chat's like, poor Jay, what an amateur YouTuber. Yeah. X-Wing's here.
This is top quality content. What the hell are you talking about? Calm seas and fair winds for this here podcast.
Oh, that's it. I love seeing all the members. A special podcast just for all of you. So, if you didn't know, I had a guest. Jay messed up the title. Shocked. Yeah, I sure did. Embarrassed. I can't change it now. I gotta wait. But on this thing, we like to talk about some of the videos that we previously showed. And if you didn't know, about a month, is it a month? About a month ago, I reached out to X-Wing and I said, man, I'm going to be super busy promoting this book and stuff. Would you do me a solid? And would you like to be on the History of Pirates channel? And I'll give you a pirate to do a little backstory. And if you didn't know, I don't know how much you could share, but X-Wing is a voice act, man. He does some voiceover work.
Ooh.
Am I allowed to share that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're good.
Okay. So he does some voiceover work, and I was like, he would be perfect. And I gave him Edward Lowe. Edward Lowe.
The criminally psychopathic pirate.
Crazy,
How
man.
perfect. Oh, how
What?
That's
perfect.
crazy.
Did you know who he was before I gave you that?
So I knew who he was. I didn't know how bad it was. I'll be honest with you. I had no idea just how bad it was. And after doing a bit of research, it's beautiful because so many times we look at things that have happened in the past and we romanticize them, right? You look at cowboys, right? Everybody wanted to be a cowboy. It's romanticized because it should be beautiful. Knights, like it was romanticized that it was very fancy. But in all honesty, it was super brutal. It was super bad. But pirates, it's the other way around. It's absolutely the other way around. We fantasize them as completely brutal, psychopathic people, when all reality, a lot of the times that was super exaggerated. But that's not what happened with Edward Lowe. He was the living embodiment of what we think a pirate was like.
So it's fascinating because back when in doing a lot of research on pirates, especially the Golden Age, and right now a lot of the videos are centered around the Golden Age, Blackbeard, Calico Jack, Edward Lowe, in that time period when that's same time period of Pirates of the Caribbean. The pirates were looked at for many, especially the young people, as heroes because most people were under king and queen rule, and they had to do exactly what the king said or the queen said, and many of the people lived in poverty unless you were up there in society. And for someone to look at the king and be like, haha, I'm gonna take your ship, I'm gonna take your money, I'm gonna take your girl, I'm gonna take your food. And it was very much like, this is the life that I want, this is the life that I want. But as we begin to learn, it isn't the greatest life that most people think it is. So in comes Edward Lowe.
Edward or Ned Lowe. Yeah. So pretty incredible guy. I mean, and to your point, these guys were absolutely the rock stars, right? Of the late 1600s, early 1700s. They were rock stars, man. They were like Motley Crue, going out doing whatever they wanted. We don't have to live under the monarchy. We'll do whatever the hell we want. I want to take money. I want to get drunk. I want to party with girls. We're going to do all that. There was a price to pay for that, obviously, right? So essentially you had to sell your soul to the devil, kill a bunch of people, take over ships, ruin people's lives. And what's really incredible about Ned Lowe is I love to think that maybe Ned Lowe was like where we got our idea of that scallywag pirate, right? This is where we formed our idea of what a pirate is, because he was so notorious. He was so brutal. The stuff that he did was so unforgivable. And yet he started out as just this simple lad in London, right?
Yeah, Edward Lowe, early life. Lowe was born in Westminster, London, probably sometime around 1690. And as a youth, he was a thief and a gambler. Mm-hmm. He was a strong young man and would often beat up other boys for their money. Later, as a gambler, he would cheat. And if anyone called him out on it, he would fight them and usually win. When he was a teenager, he went to sea and worked for a few years in the rigging house, where he made, it's hard to read with one eye, where he made repairs, where he repaired ships, ropes, and rigging in Boston. So he started
we skipped a bunch, man. There was a bunch that got skipped right there.
Go for it.
So yeah, so when he was a young kid, he gambled a bunch. He was on the streets. He was playing games and he would cheat constantly. He was from a very, very poor family, and the rest of his family was very similar. They were scallywags. They were cheaters. And if anybody ever called him out on cheating, he would beat up the kids. He would gamble with the guards at the House of Commons down the road. And by the time he was 17 years old, his brother was hanged by the neck for burglary. So you got to imagine that, like,
died.
Oh yeah, dude, they hung him until he was dead. So you're this young kid who's running around and you're cheating, you're gambling, you're beating people up. Like, this is a hard young man. And then your older brother gets hung by the neck until dead, and you're like, maybe I should get out of here. I feel like I'm working up kind of a persona. Maybe we should go to America. So he pieces out and goes to America, and that's where he picks up this job working as a rigging crew.
Vintalo.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of Edward Lowe?
No, I haven't. The previous ones that we had done the video on John King, I'd heard of him. But as far as like this dude was psycho. Like working on the
Yeah.
video and actually piecing it all together. Like this dude was psycho. Like no, thank you. Like but until we get there, we'll talk about like his favorite torture method, which was just makes me cringe.
Well,
go ahead, X-Wing.
The crazy part that I love about Ned so much is that like there's a very kind of and hate me for this, but there's a very kind of like Walter White aspect to this guy, because he had a normal life. Well, he had a really hard life, and then he moves to America. He's marrying a beautiful woman. He's having children. Like this guy has the American dream, and then God was like, "Smite," and just like, nope, like all of that is gone. Like nope, none of that, and he just breaks.
What do you think the appeal would be for him to be a pirate? Is it just the freedom to like live out his psycho-ness, like to kill, torture, maim, eat hearts of people? Whatever. Do you think like that was the appeal, or was it like I think a lot of these pirates that we see in the golden age were looking at a freedom aspect and not necessarily what we think freedom is. Was like, yeah, it's free, I can eat whatever I want and go wherever and get a job and work. It's more like they just didn't want to be told what to do, and if they saw something they wanted to take it, and to them that was freedom. They didn't want any government, they didn't want any rules, they didn't want anything. But pirates did have an incredible sort of like rules that they did make, and like levels of rank on a ship that they kept, pretty close knit. So, what do you think Edward Lowe's reason? Just out of curiosity, what was his reasoning for just wanting to become a pirate? Was it a high, or was it?
It's pretty tough. I think every man, if you really look inside your soul, every man wants some semblance of control over their life, right? It's just ingrained in kind of male nature. We have to have some sort of control over our lives. Otherwise, we go insane. So you have a young man who did not play by the rules. He saw the ugly side of the world. He moved and he thought, this is a fresh start. I'm going to play by the rules. I'm going to be a good guy. And he really took that to heart. I'm going to be a good guy. And when he did that, what happened? His wife dies, his child dies, everything goes absolutely haywire. And so I think in that moment, he kind of snaps and he goes, I'm going to get control over my life, and playing by the rules doesn't work. So let's see how far we can go not playing by the rules. And I think that's just basically how his psyche wound up working. And obviously, the further you go down the road, you start to snowball and things get crazier and crazier and crazier. And I think that's where Ned wound up where he was.
And if you have any questions, this is a member stream. There's no need to super chat. You can just type it in and we'll get to them. There's about 10 people in here. Thank you so much. Pretty awesome. Now, I want to go through some of the bullet points here, and maybe you can comment on them. So it says this is someone who thought this is what happened to Edward Lowe on how he turned to piracy. It says, tiring of life on the land, Lowe signed on board a small vessel that was headed to the Bay of Honduras to cut longwood. Such missions were risky, as the Spanish coastal patrol would attack them if they were sighted. One day, after a long day's work of cutting wood, the captain ordered Lowe and the other men to make one more trip, so as they were to fill the ship faster and get out of there. Lowe became enraged and fired a musket at the captain. He missed, but killed another sailor. Lowe was marooned, and the captain took the opportunity to rid himself of a dozen or so other troublemakers. The marooned men soon captured a small boat, and from that day forward, they turned to be pirates.
Yes. So kind of a crazy story there. Yeah, he's pulling logs back from Honduras for sale back in the States. And yeah, that's exactly what happened. Essentially, he's like, I'm hungry. And Captain's like, you will drink rum and you will be happy. And he goes, no, I won't. And he pulls the gun up to shoot the captain and he misses. And he shoots one of his crewmates right through the neck. The guy's dead before he hits the ground. But Ned, just like many narcissists, many psychopaths, was a natural leader. And so he had a bunch of people that were absolutely with him 100%. And he was basically, I wouldn't say marooned, but he was booted from the boat. And the very next day, I don't know what they had over the campfire that night, probably a whole bunch of rum. They woke up and they decided, we're pirates now. And the next day he took his first sloop.
And so it begins.
And so it began.
Sounds ideal.
How long did it take for him to, like, he gained a pretty large army, I guess, of boats, and as he started his piracy. Now, the crazy thing is that for most people, when they think of pirates, they don't realize that the life of a pirate is very, very short. He was active between 1721 and a little bit over 1723. So we're only talking like 2 to 3 years at most. And you know, so it's like, it's not a long, fun journey. Plus, they spend so much time on a boat. Like,
well, that's the thing.
Like,
travel
what is
time.
there to do? It's like you just sit and wait for days and days and days, and then I see something. Let's go get it. You know, and then it's wait for days and days and days and days and days and days, and then it's like, all right, well, let's go attack this one. For days and days and days and days, and off we go. But being like a charismatic, crazy person probably is what gained him a lot of respect as a leader, because like Vintalo said, he had some interesting tactics that he used to motivate and scare people, much of which were very, very cruel, such as like eating hearts of enemies, or making other people eat them as well. So was there any like torture that stuck out to you when it came to Edward Lowe?
You talking to Vintalo or me?
You're the one that did the video.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There are. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a little bit of history in between that I feel like, you know, you kind of have to hit before you get to where you are. So, I mean, he stole the sloop, but he didn't immediately just become like a famous pirate captain and all of a sudden he has all these ships. So he was a first mate to another pirate, Loth, and he spent some time in the Caribbean, kind of he was kind of starting to gain some recognition, and eventually Loth is just like, here's a boat. I have to imagine Loth is like, I can't contain this guy. Either he respected him enough or feared him enough in a way that it was like, take your own boat and go do your own thing.
Oh, George Lothar.
Yeah, Lothar, not Loth. Yeah, sorry, Lothar. So Lothar gives him his first boat. It wasn't the Fancy. Forgive me, I don't remember the name of the I think it was the Rebecca. Yes, thank you. It's my ex's name. That's why I forgot it. But he gets a nice boat. This is when he really starts to branch out. He starts going nuts. He starts absolutely going crazy, and he's gallivanting around the Caribbean, really making a name for himself and picking up boats. So after all of that, he begins to actually make his way back up north into the Americas, and we start to see some of this savagery. We start to see some of the things that Lowe does that really shocks people.
Now, where was his home base? Like, was it Rhode Island?
It changed. It changed constantly. So it was there. It was in the Caribbean for a time. He did kind of go up and down the northeast of the Americas, but then he also had a base in the Azores, all the way over by Portugal, which is kind of insane, because when you think about what you just said, I mean, you know, 3-4 years really of being like the high king of the seas. How much time does it take to sail between all these places? And what he did in that time, it's absolutely insane. So, yeah, when it comes to like some of the most brutal things he did, some of the things that really stuck out to people, one of his favorite torture techniques was to wrap rope in between somebody's fingers, soak it in lantern oil, and then light it on fire so that you didn't die, but it just burned your hands to the bone. There was another one. There were
Wait,
two.
wait. Hold on.
That's awesome.
Hold on. So
That's
your
awesome.
hands. So he took rope
Uh-huh.
and put it like
In between your fingers.
He intertwined it or just
Mhm.
wrapped it like that.
No, intertwined the fingers, and then he would do it with the other hand, and then clasp your hands together with rope, and then light it on fire. So your hands were essentially a human torch. And it
But I
would,
mean, you like that thing with gas. It could take a second to get there. So you're like literally
Mhm.
watching fire coming to burn your.
you're burning
flesh off your
slowly.
finger.
Yes, yeah. There was a noted.
Jeez.
There was a noted human. I can't remember exactly who it was that said Ed Lowe and his practices would put the darkest days of the Spanish Inquisition to shame with the stuff that he did.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was a lot. There was a lot. There were two really good ones that I remember that really kind of come to the front of mind. One of them was, and I believe it was a Portuguese merchant ship. They threw a bunch of money in the water instead of Ned actually getting it. And it made him so mad that he took this captain and he sliced his lips off with this cutlass, had his cook them, and then fed them back to the captain. And
With
then
no
I think-
lips.
Yeah, no lips. He had to eat his lips without lips. Yes, and he would take men.
There,
I think
followed
one
up
of the
with killing
most
like
famous
30 or
ones
50
was like,
men.
yeah, there were 50 of them that he had basically with their hands tied behind their back, and he took his cutlass and just ran it across their throats as he walked down the ship and killed every single one of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
While the
How
captain
old-
was watching too.
Oh, how old was he at this time?
So if he was born, what did we say?
It's an estimate, so it wasn't sure. He was born around 1690.
I thought it was earlier. I thought it was like
So-
1679. Okay, so 1690. At this point, he's
It's
like
17
approaching his 30s, maybe.
Okay.
Excuse
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, that's
But-
right.
So he does that, and then another one. There was a really awesome quote where there was a French cook he didn't like, and so he lit him on fire and just watched him burn to death. He just lit him
He was a
on fire.
greasy fella.
Yeah, and Ned goes, "He's a greasy fellow. He looked like he'd burn well." Just like
With his Disparu accent,
oh my
being
god.
from England. Could you imagine? All right, like we're all like crew of Edward Lowe's ship, and we're like, well, yeah, he goes a little nuts sometime, but you'll be all right. He takes care of his men. Then all of a sudden they're like, he just made that man eat his lips. They're like, yeah, you better listen to what he says.
This is the crazy part is that Ned's crew was so indoctrinated. And like I said, like these narcissistic psychopaths, they do such a good job of indoctrinating them that it was well known that his crew was totally on board for everything that he did. There was not like there wasn't a like, we shouldn't be doing this. They were like, yeah, it'd be fun. Let's hoist them up on the yardarm and drop them. Let's drop them like 40 times until they're dead from massive internal bleeding.
I also heard that they did that tactic where they took men and ran them under the ship and let the barnacles just cut them all up.
Keel hauling.
Yeah.
Kill on, yeah.
Whew.
That was real.
Can you imagine? Like, it's like almost if you get captured by pirates, you're better off like fighting till you get stabbed or shot, because you don't want to end up like what happens to them, And like if they get hungry, there's even reports that many of these pirates that captured ships, then they ran out of food, were starting to eat their, their captives. So they began to eat their captives because they didn't have enough food. So yeah, so pirate's life for me is not really for so many, but it is fascinating how even though after all that he was able to hold together for a little bit of time this armada of ships and these crews that literally trusted him. They believed him, and like anywhere they were going, they were just like, we'll take you to victory, man. We'll lead you in. And they went with him. But then something crazy happened. He began to lose control of it all.
A little bit.
So
Yeah.
what was happening with that? How did he get to that point where? And then there's we'll get to the bitter end last. But
yeah, the bitter end. So one thing I want to add too is that it is crazy that we see this guy who's a total psychopath. He completely compels his crew to do all these things, but there are just these little haunting whispers of his prior life where he refuses to press gang married men into service. And press gang is obviously you capture somebody and you say, you're going to work for me, you're going to die. It's very much the like Davy Jones kind of thing from Pirates of the Caribbean. You're going to work for me or you're going to die. He refused to do that. And then instead of being, and this is the thing that always surprised me about Ned, is you would think being as psychopathic as he was, he would be very R-wordy, like kind of rapey, right? If there was a female on the ship, he would totally have his way and then throw her off the side of the boat. That was never the case. Anytime a woman was taken on board or captured, he would always make sure she had safe passage back to land, which is just this weird thing that doesn't make sense about him. So he wasn't completely psychopathic. There was something still burning in his heart from when he left his daughter in Boston. Yeah. And I think that stayed with him for the rest of his life.
Now, Vintalo, you had the wonderful job of trying to find pictures and stuff
tough, man.
Of Edward, Ned, however we want to call him, Lowe. And like some of the stuff I don't think you could use because it was a little too graphic.
Just a bit, because a lot of it, whether it be like fan art that was put on forums, like, yeah, he had fans. But it's just, just some brutal stuff. Some of it was, relatively safe for the video, but it was kind of hard to sort of pinpoint a lot of the images we could use. But that was fun.
And the narrator's voice was kind of annoying for you to hear over and over.
Tell me about it.
I love X-Wing.
How did he lose control?
So, as with anyone who is obsessed, I think at this point, like I said, the control was the only thing that he cared about, and growing and controlling this thing he had created consumed him completely. And nothing was ever enough. So, he was in the Caribbean pillaging. It wasn't enough. He moved to, the North Atlantic off of Nova Scotia, wins a massive battle against like 7 ships, gets a bunch of different ships. It's still not enough. I'm going to go to the Azores off of Portugal. It's like the next Caribbean. So he goes that way, sets up a pirate stronghold. And eventually his name is what defeats him. He comes back to the United States, and a pirate, a notorious pirate hunter, finds him and decimates him. Absolutely decimates him in a battle. And now you have basically a psychopathically unstoppable, insane pirate who's leaving with his tail tucked between his legs. And what do you do? What do you do as a pirate lord like that? What can you do? And what does your crew think of you now? This infallible, this unbeatable, insane devil has been beaten.
Captain Peter Solagarden, I think is his name.
Mm-hmm.
He had a warship called the HMS Greyhound. And it says, although the battle resulted in the death of Lowe's crew, so he lost his crew, he and the skeleton crew of the Fancy managed to escape. During the next year, Lowe became even harsher towards the ships that he captured, and to the point where his crew mutinied and left him marooned. Vintalo said he was having some internet problems. He'll pop back in. So now that's a theory. That's a theory that so he was trying to rebuild his kingdom.
Yeah.
But it was like he just got too crazy. He got way too crazy. Like he said, it became harsher towards the ships he captured to the point where his crew mutinied and left him marooned. And according to some sources, he was found by the French, who, after finding out who he was, they hung him. Other sources claim that he managed to escape and that he lived the rest of his life in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Which one do you think?
There's another theory as well.
What's the other one?
The other theory is that his crew, they wouldn't kill him in the night. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't slit his throat because they respected him too much. So they stuck him in a dinghy and they sent him out. just to drift, which is always kind of cool because you never know. What did Ned Lowe do? He probably strapped a bunch of sea turtles with his back hair and rode back to his shore. You know what I mean? If I had to guess, Ned probably spent his last days in Brazil drinking rum until he was an old, crazy man walking around in the quarter. And he's like, I was a famous pirate lord. And people are like, whatever, crazy old man.
Well, he probably didn't speak the language. He had to learn the language. Unless there was a port that didn't recognize him. And he probably was just like, this is all I got, man. Like, this is it. I'm not going to take a chance. And I'm sure, just like Calico Jack. See, Calico Jack also like retired and he was in the Bahamas. And it just like, there was that scratch, you know, and they're like, if you do this, we're going to hunt you down and kill you. And he's like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But I did it. I freaking did it. So I wonder if he just he went back to a life of gambling. Because he probably didn't have a dime to his name if he went back to Brazil. He'd probably have to start working like the worst jobs.
You never know what he might have had with him. Maybe his crew gave him some money. I dropped this in the chat really quick because, by the way, this whole stream, I've been playing these pirate shanties in the background from Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and it takes it up to the next level. I just put them on real quiet in the background. You know what I mean? I just think
you want me to do that?
Ned Lowe has a story that you almost couldn't write it. It's so perfect. It's so perfect. You have this person who grows up rough, tries to make the right decisions, things go bad, and so he decides to go way down the other way, and he chases his name this entire time. He always tries to grow. He wants to be a Commodore, and eventually his name catches up with him. And what does he wind up with? At best, he's dead. At worst, he's basically sent to be some desolate wandering soul, and nobody knows who he is.
It's crazy to me because even without the technology, there was always a few people that, you know, you go into the local tavern and you hear the stories, you know, and they're like, so what's going on out here in the Caribbean today? Let me tell you the tale of Edward Lowe, who's still out there today. You don't want to be caught by this guy. Why?
He's sitting in the corner drinking.
Yeah. It's like, he'll make you eat a heart. He'll make you, you know, do all that stuff. No problem. Everybody in the chat, people are like, fun stream. Yeah, we're going to try to do these twice a month. So thank you, Wicked, if you have to go or whatever. We're going to try to keep it a little bit like an hour or less and just have some fun talking about the specific pirate that we did. So I see you, Paul. We did have a question that was a little non-related, but it's a question indeed. It was, I think I had it when I said questions. It was...
Gonzalo is just slamming rum down right now. Oh, you didn't sign up for this.
Did I lose it? Oh, he says the question was, how often did warring countries respect the license of privateers if captured at sea? For the most part, I would almost want to say 88 to 90% they respected it. And it was such that's such an interesting question because today it was just a letter, you know, with a stamp, with a stamp like from a person's ring or a special stamp that they had. And you never would have thought that you would forge it, because if you had forging letters, you was punishable by death, you know, like they would kill you. And so most of the time people respected it, even if the letter was fake or forged, because if they didn't respect it and if they found out later that you didn't, you probably would be put to death. So like that's a crazy thing. But thanks, Jay, for answering the question. Yeah. So there are some tales out there with Blackbeard and a few others that had these letters, because there was a time, and Edward Lowe wasn't there. Unfortunately, his time had passed, but there was a time where the pirates were so bad during Blackbeard reign. There was just tons of Calico Jack and Charles Vane and all those. They were just running amok that the only way England thought that they could stop this is by giving them a free pass, a pardon. They were like, hey, look, we know you guys did all this bad stuff. If you stop, we'll give you a pardon. You could keep all your treasure, and that's it.
Or worse yet, we'll hire you. We got enemies too. You want to go plunder? Go kill some people.
That's how it normally started for most pirates. That's why, like with Edward Lowe, was a little different because most of them started as privateers. So, like, yeah, England was at war with Spain. So they were like, well, you guys got a ship. Here's a letter from England. If you could attack any ship that's not English and keep whatever you want, you could keep the ship. You could kill the people, whatever it is.
Have fun,
Here you
lads.
go. Yeah, and then they would like find an English settlement in the Bahamas or wherever, and you can, get port and all that stuff. But when the war was over, these pirates, so they called them privateers, they were like, well, I like doing this. And they're like, well, you can't do this anymore because we're not at war. And they're like, well, forget you. I'm going to do it anyway. So then they stepped over into pirate, where they were hunted by all sides. So in the case of Edward Lowe, though, he wasn't a privateer. He was just working. He was just a day laborer, pretty much. And that's what would happen in Boston, Rhode Island.
Don't you dare put him down to that. A day laborer.
They would make the call, and they would like go out to sea for 6 months, and you would be paid so much money when you were done for whatever work you did. And that's the job. And so with Edward Lowe, he went out to cut trees in Honduras and then go back, and then he would get paid and wait for the next one. That's just what they did. And it turned out differently when he was marooned, and he was like, man, forget this. What? I wonder what would happen if he had killed the captain. Would he just
probably
would
have just taken that boat? Yeah.
But then it's like the captain had a lot of loyal people with them, though. So it's like, would you have killed the captain and then taken all the wood back to get the money, or because it was pretty much loaded, you got your haul, and it's like, hey, what happened to the captain? Well, he ain't make it. So pretty interesting. And then I think out of most pirates, Edward Lowe's story would make a great movie.
Absolutely incredible movie. Incredible movie. I mean, you can tug at people's heartstrings because, like I said, when I referenced earlier, there was always that little bit of human that bled through in Ned. And so, you remember the movie The Joker that came out not all that long ago? You can still have a villain movie, but sympathize with somebody who's super evil. That's Ned Lowe. I mean, follow that same kind of formula and make a movie like that. I think it'd be incredible.
Absolutely. I mean, the love for a woman and his child, making him go crazy, accidentally getting marooned because he couldn't shoot the captain, turned to a vicious pirate, realized he has some power and some pull. He lets his crazy out a little bit, gets a massive fleet, runs into a pirate hunter. That's just these war galleons, man, were like these pirates were no match for them, man. They just didn't have it. They had small little sloops. Basically, just so you guys know, the majority of pirates had smaller ships because they're fast.
Sloops.
But they had like crazy people on board. And so when they attacked other ships, merchant ships or whatever, these weren't people that were fighters or in the military. They were just like it was like attacking like a UPS truck.
Yeah.
That's literally what it was. You're in a motorcycle and you're speeding up to every UPS truck and just taking all their stuff. Like that's basically what it was like on the high seas. So when these giant war galleons would show up, it was filled with military people, army people, like all that stuff that were skilled shooters, snipers, out cannon, outman, sword fighters, and everything. And then you have pirates who just like whatever.
Well, don't forget though, Ned did get one.
Yes.
Ned did get a galleon, and then he blew it as soon as he got it. And this is the problem, and things people don't think about being a sailor and a navigator is that if you don't know how to rock a galleon, you're going to get in trouble. So he steals a narrow, I think it was a narrow stern galleon. It was a 125 gun galleon. He steals the galleon. And it was a man of war, I should say. I'm sorry, a man of war. He steals the man of war and calls it the Rose Pink. And Vintilo, we got some beef because you called it the Pink Rose in the video. It was the Rose Pink.
Well,
So
it's okay. Let me justify this a second. Okay, in the video for the audio, you call it the rose pink, but then later in the video, you call it the pink rose. So I thought,
okay, it's my fault.
that's
All right,
what-
oh, look, I'll take it on that. But look, here's what happens. So he gets the rose pink. He doesn't really know what to do with it because now he's got a rolling tank. He's certainly never sailed one. And beyond that, I think really up until, he got in the sloop, he was depending on other people to learn how to sail these ships because he was not necessarily a sailor at all by trade. So now he's got this massive boat. And what does he do? He lowers all these people off the side of the boat to scrub and clean it. And he left the portholes open. And so what happens? The bottom of the ship fills with water. His prized possession, the rose pink, freaking capsizes.
Yep.
Bro.
That's
Talk
what
about
happened to
egg on your face.
the other pirate that we'll get into later. He had the Wyndham, did the same thing. Killed poor little pirate John King. That's a video on this channel. Because they didn't know how to steer these. And so that's also like taking like a glider pilot and saying, here, fly this 747.
Yeah, here's a Boeing. Have fun.
Yeah, like it's the same thing, and it's
They
like
both fly.
dear God, dear God, man. Dear God. Another question. How conscious were the countries that issued the privateer license in making sure that the privateers gave the required portion of their hauls? Now, most of the privateer license, they allowed the privateer to keep their haul. So I know England, for the most part, during a certain time, they were like, if you sink a ship or steal a ship from the Spain, it's all yours, buddy. That was actually a brilliant move on England to keep the war, keep them winning at the war, because it's like, we don't have any money to pay you. So just steal all these ships and take all their gold. And that's like, okay, so that's so England didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to pay them. They didn't have to do nothing. And these people went out and just wreaked havoc and horror and terror, mostly on the Spanish. So it was such a unique thing. But again, going back to Edward Lowe, I mean, I can see the end of the movie now, he just dipping into madness after losing the battle, which he probably thought he could win, and his crew just like, you got to go, man. And then you have the alternate ending, you could have someone say, no one really knows what happened to good old Ned Lowe. Some say he was hung in France. Others say he was marooned and went crazy. And some say he lived the rest of his days in Brazil.
Regardless, it's 2023, and we're talking about him.
Yeah. Pretty cool, right?
Talk about a life worth living, good or bad. He's still spoken of to this day.
That's pretty cool.
A movie on him.
I know.
Get an epic verse on it.
Oh man, Josiah loves this channel. He talks about it all the time. So to do these little movies. King's Advisor says we need a William Kidd video. It is in the works, my friend. It is in the works. The next video is voiced by Jane Theory. She does a special female pirate from China.
Is it Anne Bonny? Oh, damn it.
Madam Ching.
Yeah.
You got to get another girl in for Anne Bonny because she was nuts.
We kind of talked about her in the Jack Rackham video, but we need a full video dedicated.
Oh, there's so much that we're gonna touch, and then we've got a French pirate coming up by the guy. You might know him. He does Loki's morning show. He's got one of the most amazing voices out there. It's just, you guys know him, Loki's Morning Mischief on YouTube, and he voiced the next one. I got to get that to Ventalo next. But so hopefully on the next podcast, if X-Wing wants to return, he's more than welcome. But we should have Jane Theory, and we'll just keep it going. And I'll throw the link in a little bit earlier. I know I threw it a little bit later because we would love any member that just wants to hang out with us. If you put a pirate hat on, you're more than welcome to join. Like, come hang out with us while we laugh. And we put the hat on, and like before we started, I totally boomered. We did like the whole intro for like 5 minutes, and I was like, we're not live.
You should end every one of these member streams with a pirate song.
Do you have one in mind?
Yeah. We'd all sing it
Oh,
together,
man.
and the people that are with you can sing it in the chat as we sing it. You want to do it?
I don't know
I'll
the
do it.
song.
I'll do it for you.
Okay.
right.
Wellerman's a good one.
I'm gonna leave.
Wait,
I'm gonna leave.
Mentalo, any final words?
No, I think he pretty much covered all bases.
X-Wing, anything else on Ned Lowe? Do you want to do another one?
Man, I don't know. Yeah, there's so much you can talk about with this guy. He's incredible. It's incredible.
Do you guys want to see X-Wing or hear X-Wing voice another pirate in the future? I think you do.
Great voice work.
Thank you, Sap.
And now he's going to close with a song.
All right, I'm gonna put a chorus in the chat. I want you to sing it. We'll just do the first verse and the second verse, and we'll call it good. Okay.
It's gonna be
Maybe as you grow, Jay, we can move on to the other parts of the song.
And I want to thank King's Advisors, Wicked Virtue, Paul, Lulu, Biggles, subbed. How do you say that? Subtle Deviancy. Did I say that right? Thank you all for being here. If I missed somebody that was here, forgive me. I was just going by what I saw in the chat real quick. So thank you all for being here. This is a lot of fun, especially from like all the craziness that's going on in the world today. I love the break. I love the break. Everyone's saying X-Wing's video was great. So yeah, I'll give him another one. I'll give him more homework. Vixen is here.
Great.
And I want to thank Wicked Virtue, who created the awesome emojis for this channel. Dump them all in the chat while we sing a song to pirates.
Okay, so I'm going to do the first verse. The second verse is sung exactly like the first. So just hear it and think about it. You ready?
I'm ready.
No. Let's do it.
Kind friends and companions, come join me in rhyme. Come lift up your voices in chorus with mine. Come lift up your voices or grieve to refrain.
But I can't see it.
Or may we might
Or we may or might never all meet here again. Now you go to the chat. So here's a health to the company and one to last. Let's drink and be merry out of the glass. Let us drink and be merry, all grief to refrain. For we may or might never all meet here again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being a first mate and listening to the Patches and Rum podcast. Now get back to your station or I'll send you to Davy Jones' locker.